and good day. Welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela.
I'm Tim.
And we are from supergoodcamping.com. We're here because we're on a mission to inspire other people to get outside and enjoy camping adventures such as we have as a family. Today's guest is an outdoor adventurer of the highest level. She leans heavily into winter camping and wilderness travel, but can also be found rock climbing and flat and whitewater canoeing. She and her hubby guide trips in winter and summer and are also quite crafty, meaning they often make their own gear, improvements, and winter clothing. She's a photographer, camp chef, and was a contestant on the History Channel's series Alone Season 7. Please welcome Kielyn Marrone of the North. Hey, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for
coming
here.
Out, man.
Celebrity. I feel like you're a celebrity.
Well, minor.
How was that experience on Alone?
Oh, how long do you have?
Yeah, you lasted quite a while on it, if I'm not mistaken. I don't watch the show, but I do keep up with it. Everyone else does, so.
Yeah, I lasted 80 days, and it was on the shore of Great Slave Lake in the Northwest Territories, and it was at the start of winter. So by the end, it got pretty cold, and yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what ended up making me tap out, was that I just couldn't stay warm enough anymore with the fat on my body that I had left. And the experience was incredible. It was very difficult. And yeah, it's hard to put in words really, but it definitely helped shape it's been now 6 years since I was on the show, and it's certainly helped sort of project me into the future or propel me into the future of just sort of really focusing on the things that really matter and leaving the things that don't behind. So yeah, it helps prioritize sort of the simple things in life.
Well, yeah, the better part of 3 months in the middle of nowhere, just trying to stay alive. Yeah, that'd be a bit of a challenge. Might be a bit of a give you some focus on, okay, what actually matters to me now. Yeah, I can see how that would play out.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is like who you want to surround yourself with and the people that you miss from at home, and just the simple pleasures in life, like drinking from a mug that's not rusty and has holes in it, and like, you know, having electricity to be able to turn on the light, and even just a wood stove with a door on it so it's not smoky. Like, these are very basic things that you know, you can take for granted. But I definitely one of the things that I did after Alone was get into pottery, and you know, I'm sort of obsessed with making mugs now, and every time I hold one with a nice cup of tea, I just think, like, how grateful am I to have this vessel that doesn't leak or cut my lips.
Yeah, or giving me lockjaw because of all the rust and stuff, right?
Yeah.
When I see on your website that some of the expeditions you guys do are like serious expeditions, so it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, they are. We have all trips across the gambit, and for intro level people who have never winter camped before, and then we have trips where people have come back for year after year, and they're a little bit more committing and challenging. But you know, we like to say it is for everybody. It literally is putting one foot in front of the other. It's just walking. But one of the biggest things is having that mindset of, okay, this is a serious expedition. You can't just decide, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm out. Like, certain trips, like the one we have coming up this week, is called Winter Wonderland. It's 8 days, but it's all based around our base camp. And so if you get into a situation where you've never tried it, you want to try it, but you get out there and you're like, you know what, I'm not feeling it. I want to get out. We have the capability of having a snow machine come out and pick them up, or, you know, even just a minor injury where you're just like, oh, I twisted my knee, I don't think I can go on. It's a lot easier to get out. But then when we do go on those more serious expeditions way up north, or even just in areas of Toboggans where, the road comes in here and then it doesn't come through again for another 100 kilometers, that's when you have to have those conversations of, well, getting out's not really an option for you at this point. Like, how can we get you to the next sort of takeout? Of course there's helicopter evacs, but that's sort of your last resort. So yeah, we definitely have the serious expeditions where we even have a link that people have to read and agree to before signing up on the expedition, just to make sure people understand that, like, no, this is a travel trip and we're planning on getting up and moving every single day, and life can get pretty tough out there.
Cool. So then I make the assumption that is it just you and your husband that do the guiding, or do you have other folks involved as well?
It's primarily just Dave and I. We do have helpers that come in and out seasonally, and they are in an assistant role. So they're mostly helping with gear prep, food prep, and then they'll come on the trips with us as an assistant. When we first started, it was just Dave and I, and we would both be the guides on the trips. And now we've started to leapfrog, where I'll lead one with an assistant and then Dave will lead one with an assistant, just to give us a little bit more time to recuperate between each trip.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I imagine it must tax the heck out of you to be doing that all the time, especially winter, because that's a little bit more, you can sit down in the middle of a regular portage, not so much when you're, knee deep in snow or what have you.
Yeah, there's not a lot of personal space on these trips, but I always joke that your morning bowel movements in the each day is sort of like your time, and so you're like walking off with the bag, going off into the bush, and like, you're doing your business. It could be a snowstorm, or you hit a tree and the snow falls on you, but you have that moment just to yourself. When you're burning your toilet paper, you have a little fire, warm your hands, take a few deep breaths. But generally, the other thing that people don't necessarily get is that during the day, like, you have a lot of alone time because you're walking in a straight line behind someone or in front of someone. Whereas in a canoe, you're often paired up and you're sort of tethered to that one person. And so you do get a lot of time to sort of meditate and just it's like melodic of just like one step and then the other. And it just really almost sends you into a trance when you get into that flow. And that can be really beautiful and magical. And you look up and just this stunning winter wonderland surrounds you. And yeah, it can take you to some pretty amazing places.
On average, how many people are on an expedition with you?
We sell out at 10 participants, so 10 plus 2 guides. Yeah.
Several of them are sold out.
Yeah. All of our trips, apart from this coming up, Winter Wonderland, we're at 8. And then all of the other trips for the season are sold out. We actually, for our 1 week loop around here, one of our travel trips, we actually added a second one because we have our friend coming back who's going to guide that one. So we added a whole second group to that, and we're going to it's a loop trip. And so they're both groups are going to go out in opposite directions, meet up in the middle, and then finish the loop at the other end, which we've done before in Toboggans, and that worked really well. When we meet up for a rest day, we have like a big feast with the 2 groups, and it's a really fun social way to meet up.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be a riot.
Yeah.
Right on. How did you get into being such an outdoorsy person? Like, how did that all come to play? Did you have parents that had you out doing stuff all the time, or like what?
Yeah, it's a good question because I didn't grow up in sort of the the typical like kid going to camp thing, or like going canoe tripping with my parents. That aspect of my life, I was into sports. So I was a competitive gymnast growing up, and then I switched to swimming, and then rowing. So sort of all through my childhood and adolescence, I was in competitive sports. And the outdoor part of me was always there because my dad's side of the family were farmers. So they were on the Holland Marsh doing carrots, lettuce, onions, and I was help on weekends packing lettuce and that sort of thing. But because of my sports, I didn't really fully get into that aspect of my family. And then my mom's side of the family grew up in Parry Sound, and my grandparents lived on a lake, and they built their own house. And my grandma was well into gardening and birding, and my grandfather was a accomplished carpenter. He made all his own furniture and, the cabinetry and everything in his house. And that part of me was always one of my favorite things to do, was go and visit them. But because of my sports, I would always look at my grandparents and sort of idolize them a little bit. And I didn't realize it until later in life, when I was at my first year of university at Western in London, that there was something to my career path that wasn't quite right. And I was going to school to be a physiotherapist, because my whole life I was, I spent more time with my physio than I did with my parents. So I wanted to help people heal from injuries. And I was thinking I would travel around with sports teams and that sort of thing. But as I was struggling, I struggled my first year at Western because I could not, for the life of me, take those multiple choice tests. I knew the material, but I couldn't get those tests. I was taking every tutorial that I could, but then I started questioning like what's going on here. And I started writing down and brainstorming sort of career options that I would really love to do. And I realized that every single one of them had to do with the outdoors. And that was sort of like an aha moment for me. And so I immediately started looking for programs that had outdoor programs. And I found Laurentian. They had an outdoor adventure leadership program. And so I immediately switched. I applied. There's only 11 people in my class. And it went from me being just a number with 500 students in a lecture hall to then having beers with my professor and knowing them by their first name, and they'd come to game nights, and just the whole thing, my whole mentality switched from being a competitive athlete to then canoeing, kayaking, rock climbing, sea kayaking, where it's much more like an inclusive sport where you're, really group dynamics is really important, and sort of those people skills and camaraderie, working together. And I was just hooked. Yeah. So from there, I got into whitewater rafting and kayaking. So I was an instructor for several years there, and then switched to sea kayaking and canoeing. And then I met Dave at university, and in school, it's 6 months of the year is winter, and we still wanted to get outside, but there weren't a lot of jobs for people who wanted to be outside in the wintertime. So we started winter camping and got really into the traditional way of camping, which, we found that out by reading the Conover's book, Snow Walker's Companion. And that book just kind of changed our whole vision of what winter camping could look like. Instead of having a heavier backpack and a little bit more clothing and a heavier sleeping bag, but still a cold tent, it's get it all off your back, put it on a toboggan, grab a wood stove, get a canvas tent, get bigger snowshoes. Everything's breathable. And it all worked as one system, and it was a sustainable system that allowed you to go further and longer and deeper into the wild. And so we knew after in 2010, we did a 40-day trip, self-supported, just the two of us. And after that, we're like, this is it. Like if winter hadn't finished early on us, like we would have just kept going. We had enough food for 65 days, but unfortunately at that time of year, the rivers were starting to open up and we had to get out of there. But that was 2010. And so 2011 was our first guided trip that we did. And we knew this was something special and that we had to keep going with it.
That's cool. That's awesome. I'm so glad you found your thing, man. Like that's very cool.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty wild change to go from whatever it was, 500 students to like 10 in the class, right? That's
it was much more my style for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I being that sort of invisible, like I think you said, a number, being a number. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not so much. No thanks.
Yeah.
Very cool backstories. So you guys have been doing it for whatever that math is now, 15 years. I know that I did some reading and saw that you have made some of your own gear I make the assumption because it needed some tweaking. It didn't quite do what you wanted it to do. Is that what you were sort of getting into? What kind of things have you guys messed around with?
Yeah, so we started by actually, even before we got deeply into the tripping, in the back of the Conover's book, The Snowwalker's Companion, there's some rudimentary patterns on how to make your own moccasins, how to make your own mittens, how to make your own anorak. And Dave made his first pair of moccasins from that book. And we lived in Sudbury at the time. And we were living in the basement, which was an unfinished concrete slab. And our feet were always cold. And, you know, we had a dog at the time, and he made his moccasins. He took the dog out in winter, and he came back and he was just dancing, and he was just like, "Oh my God, Kai, you got to make these. My feet have never been warmer. Like, you know, my feet are always frozen in the house. And when I go outside, it's -30. They're super warm." And so we started running workshops in our living room for our friends to make their own moccasins. And then their friends' wanted to make the moccasins, and then their friends' friends. And then we started going to outdoor ed centers and different, private places that wanted to have a workshop. And so we started teaching. We went to schools, lots of high schools and elementary schools. We would do moccasin making, mitten making, snowshoe weaving. So we would travel around to the Canadian Canoe Museum, and we would do 5 or 6 workshops there. And First Nations reserves, we would teach snowshoe weaving there. After teaching for several years, and then simultaneously we got into the trips as well. But then after a couple of years of teaching the workshops, people would get so inspired and hooked on making their own gear, because this gear, it's not just to look pretty, it's to actually get out and use it. And that was the thing that we loved so much about it, was that these were handcrafting skills that not only you couldn't find moccasins like you can make yourself that are wide enough to accommodate all of the insulation that you need to actually keep your feet warm. And, everything is breathable, and it all worked as a system, because, the size of the snowshoes would make a nice float for the toboggan that would ride behind you, and the moccasins would fit in the soft bindings, and your feet would be light, and, your breathable anorak would allow your sweat to, wick away during the cold winds. And people wanted to do more of it after the workshops. So we started creating these DIY kits, and did YouTube instructional videos and written instruction booklets. And so we ended up creating an online retail store where we would sell all these DIY kits. So we had the trips, we had the DIY kits, we had the finished products, and then we had the workshops. And it just became its own, like, it was like a life of its own, really. And eventually we moved off grid simultaneously as our business was growing. And, eventually the wheels are spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And you start to feel that sort of burnout start to creep in. So what we ended up doing was branching our business into two and selling the retail part of our business. So Jeff and Laura run Lure of the North Outfitters now in Sudbury, and they have taken over the kits and the finished products while we focus on the expeditions and eventually the workshops. Probably again, we stopped after COVID. We stopped teaching the workshops just because everything, as you know, just kind of went crazy. And then we realized actually we kind of need that break from that, but we get lots of requests for it. And what I would really like to do is offer workshops here at our homestead as like a weekend sort of retreat.
Cool. You mentioned off grid. So is where you live now, you're off grid? What are all the things? Do you guys have solar panels, and do wind turbines? How does that all work?
Yeah, so we moved in 2013 off grid to a property that was boat access, and there wasn't a single thing on the trail or on the property, not even a trail. And so we lived in a prospector tent for 3 years, and while simultaneously running and growing our business, and at that point we didn't have anything. We had we had our house in Sudbury that we had just built up enough equity in the house to remortgage it. And after the purchase of the property and all the lawyer's fees and everything, we had $3,000 to our name to start our off-grid life. We didn't have a chainsaw. We didn't have a generator. We didn't have a boat. We didn't even have a tent. We didn't have nothing. We had like a hammer and some hand saws, and that's basically it, and a couple shovels. Yeah, so really since 2013 we've just been constantly putting every dollar that we earn into the property, and we're getting to the point now where we're starting to feel like we can breathe a little bit. So we built, after 3 years of living in a tent, we built our home, which is 2.5 stories, because we have our workshop on the first floor where Dave has all his woodworking tools and everything, and then our main floor of the house, the kitchen and living space, and then our bedrooms in the loft. And we built a garage which houses all of our expedition stuff, and we also have a fitness center that we use to stay healthy in our off time. And we've got 12 kilowatts solar array and a diesel generator as a backup. And we did all this without a road, so it was we moved in all the materials with a 16-foot aluminum boat that leaked. Eventually, only a couple of years ago, we bought a friend of ours barge off of us, or off of him, which made things a lot easier, but still boat access. And then just recently, we started putting an actual road into our place. But to give you some context, it's still 11 kilometers away from the nearest highway. So it's still quite remote and rugged.
That's a lot of chopping down of trees.
Fun,
Yeah, I mean, it was actually an old logging road, but it had just been completely destroyed over the years and closed in. So just sort of reopening it, and a lot of grading, a lot of work.
on house building skills.
Yes, yeah. So our qualifications for building our house involved, well, we've built 2 sheds now. What's a house? It's just a bigger shed. So we're like, well, it's just a bigger rectangle. Yeah, there's not much can't in our household.
That's a good thing to have. That's that's awesome. That's awesome. So winter clothing, okay, cool. Do you mess around with toboggans or pulks or whatever? Like, do you make your own snowshoes? What? Anything else outside of like clothing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we make the classic 10, 12 foot freight toboggan, and the top bags, the tanks, the stove bags, ice chisels. We weave the snowshoes. We don't make the frames, but definitely weave them. And yeah, what else? I mean, pretty much anything that we needed at the time, we would either source it and make it, or jerry rig something that already existed to make it work. Yeah, we're pretty crafty people.
Yeah, no, I got that impression.
Well, as camp chef, so how do you dehydrate food? Do you do a mix of, because you've got natural refrigeration in the wintertime?
Right.
Yeah, that's really nice with winter. Of course, now we're getting a thaw, so you do have to think about that sometimes. But I used to dehydrate all my own food, but now with 1,000 people food days a year that I have to prep for, that's just way too much to dehydrate on our solar system. So I get freeze dried food from Bryden Solutions in Manitoba, and they sell the number 10 cans of just the plain ingredient. So I'll get, can of onions, tomatoes, broccoli, beef, chicken, you name it, they have it. And it's all in single ingredient tins. So then I, from there, make all of the meals up with that. And it's really nice because you know exactly the ingredients that are going in. There's not all these additives and preservatives and salt, and so you really can make a really healthy meal with it, and it's super light. And the freeze drying actually retains a lot of the nutrients in the food versus using heat to dehydrate it. Kind of denatures some of the proteins and vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, we who was Camp Kitchen? Oh, Tyler, right?
Tyler, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a surprising. I had no idea when we were talking to him about it. He said, "Yeah, it's like 30% or 40% more of the nutrients and stuff is in the freeze dried foods as opposed to the dehydrated food." I had no idea. I didn't know I was losing all that stuff. Dehydrated.
It also retains its shape better too, because it's like you picture a flora of broccoli, rather than it shrinking in size, it's actually like the vapors expand, and so that also means that it rehydrates really quickly too, because you're just replacing that water versus it having to kind of swell back up. So it's kind of cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I need to look into the freeze drying thing. I'm pretty sure I can't afford it. But
the cans are actually quite affordable. Well, if I took you for a tour in my pantry, it would not look affordable. But, if you were doing a 2-week canoe trip and you got a can of onions, a can of mushrooms, a can, but by the time you went to all the trouble to dehydrate it all yourself, it wouldn't cost you more to buy the cans. But I think it's actually a really affordable way to do it. And then also, as long as you have the storage space, what you don't use it, after the can is open, it's still good for 5 years. So, if you're into tripping and you're going to do an annual trip for at least 10 days a year kind of thing, then I think it's worth it for sure.
All right, when I edit this episode, I will write down the name of that company in Manitoba and
yeah, definitely.
Cool. So you guys, you do other things like canoe tripping, flat whitewater. Do you do that as part of Lure of the North, or is that just you guys taking a break from business stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't run a lot of summer programs because we moved off grid, and for the last 15 years we've been the summer months are all about building, getting roofs over our heads, getting our water system installed, getting our furnace installed, all of these things that require time. So before we moved out here, we did a lot of guiding, canoe, kayaking, hiking. But since moving out here, we have done several, but it's not our mainstay. I do a survival course kind of every other year out here. And now that we're getting more set up, I would love to start offering programs from here where it would be more like wilderness living, wilderness cooking, foraging, sort of life skills for wilderness living. Dave does a lot of milling, so chainsaw milling, and like other types of homesteading stuff, like learning about solar and sort of water solutions and all that, forest management. And yeah, so that's sort of our summer. We actually started a business doing solar design and installs for other people, and also arborist work. So we do tree removal for remote properties, and so that actually keeps us quite busy in the summer months now. But I am hoping to continue developing programs where people can come out here and learn about mushroom foraging and other types of wild foods and wilderness living.
Yeah, that's. I heard somebody say once that all mushrooms are edible once.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Just to flip back, because I'm fascinated by the whole off-grid homesteading thing. How do you deal with waste, I suppose? So, like, do you have composting toilets? Do you have, I don't know, do you do a big compost thing out, to try to minimize your sort of garbage impact, I guess?
Yeah, so for our food waste, we have a giant compost. I have 2 in rotation, so I rotate them every other year, and that's well away from our house so that we're not attracting animals too close. And then our actual, like our garbage, we have what we call the bear cage, and we burn all our burnables, so all of our paper products, because we just accumulate so much of it. We'll burn that in our fire pit, and then our recyclables and our garbage we just store what we call the bear cage until we have enough, and then we do like a regular dump run at the municipality in town. And then human waste, so our gray water, we have a proper French drain for our gray water. And then for our human waste, we still just use a thunderbox. We don't have indoor plumbing. We just go outside and we just have a hole. And when the hole gets filled, we just pick up the box and dig a new hole. And it's pretty funny how sort of what's the word, civilized this place is. Like, we have running water, we have electricity, we have a dishwasher, we have a laundry machine, we have a dryer, we've got a standing freezer, a regular sized fridge, but we still don't have a toilet. So we still have to go outside, and I just pee in a bucket and I just throw it overboard. Like, it's very primal. But I don't, like, human waste is more complicated to deal with, than just regular gray water. And so maybe if our road ever gets good enough that we can actually have a proper field bed, then that's something that we could look into. But I know there's like pretty good advancements in the composting toilets, but they actually either burn a ton of propane or take a lot of electricity. And and neither one of those we have lots of, or we could burn propane, but that would be a lot. So yeah, we're happy with just a hole right now.
That's good for you. That works just fine.
Yeah. I guess what I'm going to talk about at the outdoor show,
oh, by the way, you will be our 200th episode.
Yay. No, yeah, I'm going to be speaking on Saturday afternoon, and we're going to be, or I'm going to be talking about our 73-day expedition crossing Ontario by snowshoe. So we went from Lake Superior all the way to James Bay, and there was 13 of us. And yeah, so it was a fully guided, self-supported trip. Not self-supported in the sense that we actually had 3 food drops. But we walked every mile is what I meant.
Gadzooks. That's a hike, man. I can see why you would have the workout space at home to make sure that you're in shape to do stuff. 73 days. Holy
yeah, totally. Yeah. Although it is one of those types of activities where like you can train, of course, just by being generally fit and, get your leg muscles going. But really it's like, it's a very specific thing to lift a heavy snowshoe for, 10 hours a day. And so really you get your snow legs, within the first week. And then as the trip progresses, you just feel stronger and stronger.
73 days of 10-hour days.
Nah, I don't think so. I'm happy to listen to other people.
We
tell
will
stories
love to hear
that.
about yours.
Certainly not for everybody.
Yeah. Well, cool. So that's Kielyn will be at the Hamilton Adventure Expo on the Saturday, which I want to say is the January 24th. I think.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I don't know that they've even published who's at what time yet, so we won't. I'm not going to put that out there and be wrong about it because I'm wrong about stuff all the time. Yeah, I think that's good for me, and I'm really looking forward to. We've talked to Jason and Breton, and we're going to do some social media stuff at do some live streaming, do some podcast stuff, and it's like, but you have invited all the presenters I want to go see, so how am I supposed to be in the booth and seeing the presenters? I don't know how this is going to work.
Cloning.
Yeah, you just have to get a stand-in.
That's exactly. I would put a cardboard cutout there and just tape my voice.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it for us for today. Thank you so much to Kielyn Marrone of Lure of the North. And please do check them out. They are at lureofthenorth.com. They're on Instagram and all the social media as at Lure of the North. And please do check us out while you're there. We'd love it if you liked, subscribed, shared, and do all the things. We will talk to you again soon, and email us anytime. We are at hi@supergoodcamping.com. That's hi@supergoodcamping.com. Bye.
Bye.